Greetings all, and welcome to the 9th segment of A Traveler's Guide 2 for Zebes, and today we'll be concluding our examination of the planet with this final segment, A Traveler's Guide to Tourian. Tourian, in both of its variations, served as a central base and headquarters for the Zebesian Space Pirate forces, and in particular Mother Brain, the monster responsible for pulling most of the strings in the background. This vile area had no real form of natural biota at all, consisting of a series of artificial chambers built from metal girders and supports. In a way, the complete lack of any organic structures could be equated to the opposite of the Chozo, as we would often try to incorporate technology with simple materials to create architectural wonders that are both durable and alive to some extent. During the Hunter Zero mission, it was here that she was forced to battle through and kill all of Mother Brain's Metroids before ultimately confronting the Fiend herself and destroying her. In the ensuing defeat, a time bomb in the original Tourian forced the Hunter to leave the planet post-haste, but while the ensuing explosion destroyed Tourian, she would be shot down afterwards as noted already, and forced to directly eliminate the Zebesian Space Pirates in order to save the planet. Eventually, the original Tourian fell into such ruin that it lost all sense of importance and effectively became just another part of Crateria. However, this was far from the last time this land would see the light of day, as a new Tourian was built by the Zebesian Space Pirates 4 years after the Hunter Zero mission, and Mother Brain was revived and plugged directly into it. This new Tourian was situated dangerously close to the planet's core, and was thus seen as almost impossible to access. Moreover, the gateway to the lab was guarded by a massive golden statue with the visages of the 4 major generals under Mother Brain's control, and the Hunter was forced to find and destroy all 4 of these monsters to gain access to the new metallic nightmare. Most of the new Tourian was identical in form and structure to the original, featuring toxic substances and a completely artificial environment, but there had been a new twist thrown in. Close to Mother Brain's main chamber, there's an artificial ecosystem built into the land that actually housed living creatures and for the most part seemed to replicate some of the more calming tropical environments seen in places like Brinstar. The Hunter quickly found out that these few rooms actually served as an incubation chamber where the infant Metroid rescued from SR-388 had been growing and eating, mutating into the big Metroid, as it was given larger and larger creatures to devour and exposed to extreme amounts of beta radiation. The Hunter was able to get the infant to leave her be and confronted Mother Brain once again in the final chamber of Tourian, defeating her with the power of the hyper beam gifted to her by the infant. With Mother Brain's defeat, a time bomb directly connected to the core of the planet automatically started to count down and caused the area to start to destabilize. With the help of her new weapon though, the Hunter was able to make her way to Crateria, rescued the Edicoons and Takora that had helped her on her adventure, and managed to get all parties far out of the way when the time bomb finally detonated near the core, causing Zebes to explode and vanish from the universe for the rest of time. Unlike all of the areas of Zebes during the Hunter's missions there, the creatures found there are completely and utterly unique to this area, minus the harmless S-bug, and therefore there really isn't anything here that has been covered before in discussing creatures and machines on the planet. Though it is known that the extremely tough and mutated blue sidehoppers that could be found in the newer version of Tourian behave the same way as normal sidehoppers, only distinct in having extremely thick, durable exoskeletons that only super missiles could actually penetrate. With that, it's time to move on and check out the unique entities that could be found in this metallic base. Tourian cannons were distinguished from other cannons by their incredibly simple design and equipped weaponry. These cannons consisted of a large circular base with a long but thin gun barrel and were mounted onto blocks in Tourian, only equipped to fire small energy projectiles in order to deal damage. While the shots by themselves were not powerful enough to inflict substantial damage, they could be enough to knock an individual into the toxic liquids that once filled the more protected portions of the artificial environment. Moreover, they are oftentimes placed in great numbers within a small area in order to make up for their low firepower, and the fact that the blocks they were attached to were indestructible only made them that much more of a nuisance to have to deal with. Unfortunately, this did not really elevate their status as a weapon much with their simplistic design and firepower, and thus are best placed within threat level Alpha. The name Rinka refers to a special type of projectile fired by ring beam cannons found in Tourian and Sector 0 of the Bottle Ship. The projectile itself, as its name might suggest, is a ring-shaped object with a hollow center that can be produced on an energized spire from a cannon, almost like a smoke ring, except that these rings can really hurt and fly through the air at different speeds depending upon their color. These energy shots are unique in that they interact with matter differently than other energy-based technology. The ones that are reported to exist in Tourian were developed from prototype wave beam technology and thus had the ability to pass straight through solid objects, making them very difficult to avoid. Thankfully, these energy shots were still relatively unstable and could be destroyed with a few shots from any beam weapon, but they could still be clustered together close enough that dodging a stream of them could be extremely difficult, and in turn not something that a normal fighter would want to have to face, especially if they were supported by Tourian cannons like those used by Mother Brain for defense in the heart of Tourian. Nonetheless, these devices really couldn't do much more than a standard turret in terms of offensive variety, and while technically indestructible, their destructible energy attacks made them less effective than some of the turret models, and thus belong in threat level alpha. Though they might be extinct in the known universe, or at least as far as we know now, Metroids were once the scourge of the galaxy and serve as a testament to the dangers of bioweapons and the power they can have when placed in the wrong hands. The Metroids were originally created by the Chozo as the ultimate weapon against the X-Parasite, which threatened to destroy the entire ecosystem of SR-388, and most likely every planet they came across if allowed to leave the planet. In fact, the name Metroid is actually Chozodian for Ultimate Warrior. However, the creatures proved to be too effective at the job and destroyed much of the native life on the planet as they mutated in the presence of the Aeon energy on SR-388, and once the Space Pirates got a hold of them and started to breed them and use them as bioweapons with the help of Mother Brain, they quickly became a scourge and a serious threat to the galaxy. Hence, while they were supposedly eradicated by the Hunter many years ago, though cloning and experimentation with the creatures may continue in some parts of the galaxy under legal orders regardless. As infant Metroids mutate, they eventually gain the ability to drain the life energy of other organisms, and once they gain this power, it is only a short time before they mature into the larval Metroid stage, which is the form that most are familiar with. In this form, the creatures possess a thin green membrane over their bodies that helps to protect them against direct fire by dispelling energy that comes in direct contact with the outside of the membrane. Inside the creatures are a quartet of nuclei that serve as the nerve center and energy processing plant. They additionally possess two pairs of cuspidate teeth or fangs in the lower half of their body. The larger set is used to sink into the flesh and armor of a target and keep the Metroid from being dislodged, while the smaller pair is designed to drain the life energy of a target, which subsequently flows into the main body through a hidden toothy circular maw on the underside until their prey is reduced to dust. This power is what allows these creatures to grow and mature further over time, as they are purely energy-based organisms and have the amazing capacity to convert the life energy that they steal into pure biomass, and thus do not require the possession of any other major organs inside the body to process nutrients. It is unsure what it is that Metroids actually feed off, as the life energy they supposedly steal takes away no vital fluids or flesh, yet it reduces the body of a target to a crumbling husk when it is drained away. This single feature is the one thing that has proven to be almost impossible to replicate outside of these creatures, and was the source of experimentation by space pirates for many, many years, though ultimately their projects mostly failed. While in their larval state, these Metroids are completely invulnerable to most forms of weaponry, and even though a Morph Ball Bomb or similar concussive device can be used to dislodge a Metroid if it has a grip on an individual, this does not damage them in any way and merely acts as a distraction for a brief moment. However, despite all of this, these creatures are still weak to the devastating effects of power bombs and, more importantly, possess an extreme weakness to cold. This is because the outer membrane is susceptible to being flash frozen, and once it is frozen, the Metroid becomes unable to move and vulnerable to the effects of concussive weaponry. This has always been the only really efficient way to capture and kill most types of Metroids, and while the degree of effect varies depending upon the variety of Metroid and its current life cycle stage, it is nonetheless the best tool that an individual can have against these monstrous creatures. This otherwise extreme resilience to damage, combined with their natural life-draining abilities, is what helps to define these beasts within threat level Delta, and can sometimes be far more of a danger in this regard than relatives and evolutions developed on alternate planets.
Ah yes, the classic specimen that so many stories and tales have been written on, straight from the depths of SR-388. I mainly only have personal experience dealing with talent Metroids and similar ilk, but at the same time I have to admire the sheer power of these creatures and the specific needs to even begin to approach them. It's a common misconception that freezing Metroids is the only real way to harm them, but it's only those derived from the whole planet that seem to have this trait in all cases. Nonetheless, they ought to be feared regardless of their potent life-training attributes, and even with the right equipment to handle them, given the track record of space pirates, I would advise against just picking them up for experiments. They need to be handled carefully and delicately, and that's for your sake, not theirs.
However, during the Hunter's final visit to the area, the Zebesian Space Pirates unintentionally made a big mistake with the baby Metroid that had survived SR-388, that had been stolen by Ridley from the Sirius space colony. While the life cycle of a Metroid native to the planet SR-388 is well known for the most part, the Zebesian Space Pirates found in their studies that in 0.08% of all Metroid species exposed to large volumes of beta radiation, there is a specific gene combination that results in the transformation from an infant into an extremely bizarre juvenile stage, more powerful than perhaps many other Metroids native to the planet could ever be. In these rare specimens, these creatures never reach the biological processes that lead to the natural metamorphic stage of maturity. Instead, all developmental stages are halted, and physical growth continues at a congruent rate, with the efficiency of their energy draining abilities increasing steadily at the same time. Moreover, their behavior grows increasingly complex and begin to demonstrate greater intelligence and problem-solving abilities, allowing them to form relationships with others that are otherwise beyond the norm of their kind. To the great surprise of Mother Brain and her cohorts, it was this stage the infant Metroid rescued by the hunter developed into, or within the bowels of Tourian, and the creature had to be locked away in a quarantine area in order to keep it from causing mass destruction in the facility, only to be encountered by the hunter on her way to destroy the resurrected Mother Brain. While retaining the rounded shape of an infant instead of the wider, more oblong shape taken on by true larval Metroids, the creature still had the same cries and squeaks given off by an infant and retained memory of its surrogate mother, the hunter, ultimately helping her destroy Mother Brain and Zebes itself in a final fight against the maniacal cyborg. The big Metroid, or the baby as called by the hunter herself, had the ability to not only steal life energy from creatures, but could even use it to heal and revitalize others, much as it did for her when she was nearly killed by Mother Brain in the battle previously mentioned. This power was what the hunter and many scientists elsewhere had hoped that Metroids could be, safe organic batteries that could be used to heal soldiers on the battlefield and prevent death in that fashion, but the death of the infant ultimately left them to be seen as bioweapons alone. It is known, though, that the Aether Space Pirates had managed to figure out how to get Talon Metroids to do this in the past as well, but forceful and repeated energy drains acted to break down the cellular structure of the creatures. Despite the fact that it is now dead and its powers can no longer be studied, the baby is not gone entirely, as a vaccine made from its cells was used to save the hunter after being infected by X-parasites, in turn fusing it with her and embedding part of the infant's DNA into her own, and as a whole, is most certainly a candidate for threat level Epsilon, only kept from a higher ranking by its capacity to safely interact with those close to it. The Zebetite was an artificial barrier that was as close to being an organic form as possible in terms of regenerative qualities. While they and Zebes still existed, these structures consisted of a large cylindrical tube with a number of compressed energy pellets. These pellets served as a fuel source for Mother Brain and the rest of Tourian, and could be produced fairly cheaply compared to other forms of energy, making them the preferred fuel source for the Zebesian Space Pirates. The tube structure itself was made of a highly resistant form of glass, similar to that used in Mother Brain's control capsule, and was completely resistant to the effects of beam weapons. However, the structure was still vulnerable to the effects of concussive weaponry, and thus could easily be destroyed with them, but this came with a catch. Once the initial glass was broken, the energy pellets inside were stacked so tightly together that they could not be destroyed individually. The impact force from a weapon like a missile would instead have its damaging force spread over the entire surface of the stack, decreasing its overall impact power. Moreover, as the Zebetite took damage, tiny repair drones would manifest from inside the tube and start to build a new glass wall over the hole, effectively allowing the structure to regenerate its wounds if not continuously attacked. As such, the only way to completely destroy a Zebetite was to continuously fire missiles of some sort at it without letting up until it broke all the way to the center of the pellet containers, where the pellets could then easily be ignited by a single final blast that shattered them completely. Once the Zebetite was destroyed, it automatically disabled the repair drones inside and thus ensured that it did not regenerate any further until serious maintenance could be performed, which was an unlikely scenario in both of the times these structures proved to be an obstacle for the hunter. All in all, while they could work as effective damage sponges to help exhaust the ammunition and power of any being that went near Mother Brain, the Zebetites themselves had no way to be an offensive threat to anyone or anything, and thus belonged within threat level Alpha. Mother Brain was the entity responsible for many of the events in the early life of the hunter, and the creature that made the Zebesian Space Pirates into a fearsome force, and even to this day, her memory continues to haunt the bounty hunter and all those that still remember the scourge. When Mother Brain was first created by the Chozo, she was not designed to be a weapon, but a helper. As a basic but nonetheless highly intelligent AI, Mother Brain was originally designed to work as a monitor system, controlling several different machines on the planet Zebes and keeping track of data and reports. She is one of the first entities to ever meet the hunter when she was taken in by the Chozo known as Old Bird, and while she predicted that the young girl was a weak creature and would not survive more than a few days on the planet, she was quickly proven wrong, as the hunter was infused with the blood of Ravenbeak, the leader of the Chozo Mockin tribe, her body biologically modified to be able to survive the harsh conditions of the planet, while she was further trained in the art of Chozo combat. In the following years, Mother Brain acted as an instructor for the hunter and showed her how to use her power suit, which she herself had custom made to fit the hunter, and other basic weapons, though she always did so with a mocking tone and seemed to care only about angering the human and pushing her beyond her psychological limits. After the Hunter left, Mother Brain became increasingly frustrated with the Chozo, not only because they refused to upgrade her and give her an actual body, but because they seemed to show no real form of ambition to advance any farther in their presence in the galaxy. This was simply the way of the Chozo at that time, however, as millennia before, they had reached a technological limit and a population crash that relegated them to simply sitting back and watching the rest of the universe develop. In desperation, she saw the fledgling Zebesian Space Pirates in the area and their leader Ridley as the perfect way to cement a position of power. As such, she turned against the Chozo and became the new leader of the Space Pirates, forming the first High Command in the process. Using the resources of the Zebesian Space Pirates, Mother Brain was able to construct a real body for herself in the form of a giant brain, with spikes from which electricity arced across, and a single massive eye connected to every single camera and recording device on Zebes that enabled her to see everything and anything. She was further attached to the mainframe of her lair, Tourian, by a series of thick electrical cables and was protected inside the control capsule, a glass-like containment unit only vulnerable to the concussive force of missile weapons made from molecular transference of the Zebetites in her main chamber, using the same system that produced the Chozo's planetary protection shield, which ensured that only limited parties could actually reach the surface of Zebes. The Galactic Federation launched multiple attacks against the Zebesian Space Pirates, but they found themselves unable to penetrate into the planet to stop Mother Brain herself. Worse yet, the Space Pirates had stolen the Federation's first collected Metroid specimens from SR-388 and had begun to weaponize them even further, cloning the creatures repeatedly via beta ray exposure to create an army with which they planned to take over the galaxy. As a result, the Hunter was given her first major mission, her so-called Zero mission, with the purpose of entering Zebes and destroying Mother Brain to end the war immediately. As she explored the reaches of the planet, she came across many monsters as well as Kraid and Ridley, two of the prime leaders in charge of the Zebesian forces, but was able to defeat both of them to unlock the gateway to Tourian where Mother Brain was kept. In doing so, however, the Hunter learned that Mother Brain had no intentions of actually helping the Zebesian Space Pirates win their war against the Galactic Federation. Instead, it was her plan to have the Zebesians and the Galactic Federation fight against each other until both sides were severely weakened, and when they were unable to continue battling at their full strength, she would release Metroids into their bases and kill them all in one fell swoop. As one of the entities responsible for bioengineering the creatures, Mother Brain had a special telepathic power that enabled her to remotely control the creatures, and with time, she believed that she would be able to breed their perfect Metroid that would be intelligent enough to completely follow her orders, as the ones that currently existed could not have their hunger and hunting instincts controlled. It was all part of her plan to reset the universe and create a system where she could ensure the creation of entities intelligent enough by her standards to be worth giving life to. Perfection was what she demanded, and perfection dictated that all present life she had interacted with, all the beasts she had worked with, be exterminated. Unfortunately for her, just like Ridley, she had severely underestimated the power of the Hunter, and the bounty hunter was able to destroy the control capsule containing Mother Brain's body to make her vulnerable. Though she had many Tourian cannons and Zebetites protecting her, and even had a variant of the Chozo charge beam installed in her body so she could fire blasts of energy from her eye, it was not enough. The Hunter was able to deal critical damage to her eye and destroyed Mother Brain. However, Mother Brain had planned for this and activated a time bomb in Tourian the moment she died, and the Hunter was just barely able to make it off the planet before the entire place self-destructed 2 minutes later in a massive explosion. She was shot down by orbiting Zebesian pirate forces outside the planet, but as mentioned several times before, she was still able to destroy the space pirate mothership and turn the vast majority of their forces before escaping, finally completing her task and earning the gratitude of the Galactic Federation. After Mother Brain's death, a new High Command was formed and took control over other space pirate forces in other parts of the universe and created a true confederation that proved to only make them stronger and more intelligent in their tactics in the end. In the meantime, however, behind the Hunter's back, the Galactic Federation had been analyzing the data taken from what remained of Mother Brain and reverse engineered her in order to create the Aurora units, brain-like organic supercomputers with the same basic intelligence and mental capabilities of the original Mother Brain, but with all of her personality traits removed, enabling the Galactic Federation to mold the AIs personally and give them friendlier personalities that are more agreeable and safer to work with. This even came with the design of a new chamber system with gates and shields designed to protect the Aurora unit from harm. However, with the rise of the Phazon crisis, it was revealed to at least some degree that not all of Mother Brain's personality programming had been avoided, as one Aurora unit in particular, who was known to have a higher aggressive potential than its brethren, 313, rebelled after being removed from the GFS Valhalla and exposed to Phazon, and was used to create a central intelligence network on Phase, though it and Dark Samus will eventually be destroyed along with the entirety of Phase and Phazon by the Hunter. In the wake of the destruction of Phase and the end of the resistance in the Bermuda system, the only major space pirate forces that were left were those still stationed on Zebes, and with little left to work with and High Command obliterated from the consequences of the phase-on crisis, they determined that their best chance of survival was to recreate Mother Brain. Although the maniacal AI had been destroyed, she had kept a log of her thoughts on file for emergency usage, and with that data, they were able to rebuild and resuscitate her. Upon awakening and learning of what had transpired, Mother Brain took full control over the Space Pirates once more. She was furious over what had happened since her last moments of existence and wished to destroy the Hunter once and for all. But in their current state, the Zebesian forces were not enough to simply start a war with the Galactic Federation again. No, something more had to be done. She needed Metroids. And after the destruction of Phase, there was only one place left that they could be found, SR-388. Before she could send any forces to retrieve specimens, however, the Hunter had been ordered to exterminate the creatures once and for all, and for the most part, she did just that. But out of hidden heart for a hatchling, she took the last Metroid in the known universe, an infant Metroid, and delivered to the Ceres space colony, where it was to be studied to see if it could be used to better the universe instead of harming it any further. Mother Brain had been watching the entire time, and as soon as Ridley was recovered and revived fully by his Zebesian forces, she ordered the monster to attack the colony the moment the Hunter left it. He was successful in his attack and stole the infant. Although the Hunter tried to grab the infant back, she ran out of time and was forced to pursue the monster to Zebes after the colony self-destructed a minute after Ridley made his escape. Back on Zebes once more, she fought her way through Mother Brain's 4 primary generals and opened the way to Tourian once more. There, she saw that the Zebesians had been using beta rays to force the infant to reproduce and create more Metroids, but because of the mutation that occurred to the small creature, the infant had developed into the big Metroid and nearly drained all of the Hunter's energy before it realized that she was the mother that had rescued it, leaving her alone afterwards. Mother Brain would eventually admit that the infant had rejected her as a mother, unlike the rest of the Metroids, and was thus being kept in quarantine with monsters like blue Sidehoppers and Torizos to feed on until she could figure out a way to brainwash the creature. The Hunter fought her way through the new Tourian, whose innermost chambers had been built from stolen Federation designs for the Aurora Unit chambers, and after blasting through Zebetites and avoiding the weapons that Mother Brain had put in front of her glass cage for defense, the Hunter was able to crack her control capsule once more and blasted Mother Brain with as much firepower as she could muster. Finally, the connections between Mother Brain and the rest of Tourian separated, and she fell to the floor with a loud thump. Before the Hunter could celebrate the defeat of her nemesis, however, the floor beneath Mother Brain opened up, and the brain connected itself to a titanic body, turning her from a supercomputer brain into the most powerful and deadly monster the Hunter had ever faced before. Mother Brain's new body seemed to be of chosen design and was created by the maniacal AI just in case her adversary tried to pull the same stunt as last time. It stood on a single pair of muscular legs with somewhat short arms just big enough to reach her head when brought as close as possible, all of which were attached to a semi-elongated body with a thick rounded base at the hips and a chozo-like upper body. Her head attached to the body by a long extendable neck taken from the design of the corrupted Aurora Unit 313, as the monster opened her newly installed mouth filled with jagged teeth and roared ferociously at the Hunter, toxic slimy gas seeping from her mouth as if the behemoth was actually breathing. In this form, Mother Brain gained access to 5 new attacks, the last of which nearly ended the Hunter completely. In terms of her head, Mother Brain had been equipped with a modified Zebesian laser cannon for dealing with any insignificant pests that might have gotten in her way, an energy pulse cannon that allowed her to spew rings of energy from her mouth that could damage and knock back her targets, and a grenade launcher that allowed the beast to spit large bombs from her mouth that would explode shortly after hitting something with a very large spread radius. From her arms, the monster had installed massive energy cannons that could spit streams of explosive energy bombs that only traveled in a straight line but had enough explosive potential to critically damage or kill most creatures and make the entire room shake if they hit a wall. Lastly and most importantly, she had access to a powerful attack simply referred to by the Hunter as the Laser Brain Attack, a super concentrated beam of energy designed with the same attributes as the Chozo Charge Beam, but exaggerated to incredible degrees of lethality. Though it took a while for the attack to power up, when released, Mother Brain would fire a large rainbow-colored beam from her eye that could deal such devastating damage that almost nothing was able to withstand the blow. In fact, in her battle with the Hunter, she used it repeatedly on the bounty hunter, and aside from draining her energy at a very rapid pace, it severely damaged her suit and somehow drained much of her ammo reserves as well. After some time, the Hunter was unable to get back up from the attack, slamming her into the wall, and with one final charge prepared, it seemed that all hope was lost for her. But just as the Hunter was about to meet her end, the big Metroid appeared out of nowhere and latched itself onto Mother Brain's head, absorbing the laser brain attack and draining Mother Brain's life energy in the process to the point of reducing her to a dusty husk that slowly fell onto the floor, seemingly dead. The infant floated over to his surrogate mother and used the power taken from Mother Brain to restore her energy. However, what the infant and the Hunter had not realized was that, When Mother Brain's own life energy was gone, the body that she had built for herself was mechanical and actually able to revive her, and within moments of expiring, her newer body energized her and brought her back to life. Instead of fleeing, the infant held onto its mother and took the brunt of several attacks from Mother Brain's energy pulse cannon. After it had finished giving its mother back all of the energy that she had lost in the fight, the infant rose up and flew over to attack Mother Brain again, but it had been so severely weakened from the previous attacks that it only took one final strike for the infant to destabilize on a cellular level and explode. The last Metroid in the universe at that time had just saved the hunter's life, and now it was dead. But in its death, the particles of the infant's exploded body fell onto the hunter and were absorbed, passing onto her something far more precious than just an energy boost. It passed on Mother Brain's laser brain attack in the form of the Hyper Beam, not to be confused with the Phazon Hyper Beam used by the hunter during the Phazon Crisis. With this incredible power at her disposal, the hunter stood up and fired repeatedly at Mother Brain with her new weapon. Though the monster tried to fight back, its vulnerable head could not withstand the sheer power of this weapon, and with a final scream of pain, eventually, its body self-destructed. Mother Brain's true body fell to the floor, and as the creature opened its mouth to let out one final scream, its life function ceased, and the machine dissolved into dust. As you might imagine though, this was not the total end, as Mother Brain had made one final choice in her plan to make sure that she would take down her nemesis if she were to die. In a fit of panic and likely paranoia, Mother Brain hooked up her vital signs to the mainframe of Tourian and the entirety of Zebes' core, and upon her death, she triggered a self-destruct countdown for a massive time bomb that would ensure that every single object in and on the planet would die in 3 minutes. The hunter, with the help of her new Hyper Beam, broke through the base of corridors beneath the planet's surface and escaped the planet with the Edicun's Decora she had met before similarly leaving after she cleared a path for them while escaping, only to watch Zebes to explode. The planet was gone forever, and in turn, the forces of the Zebesian Space Pirates and Metroids. It is more than apparent that the scars left by Mother Brain and the Zebesians together were something that destroyed lives and led to the end of much of the Chozo in and around Zebes, a travesty that can now sadly never be rectified with the planet now gone. Though only a brain in a jar at first, this diabolical monster proved itself to be a capable and terrifying leader, and not a foe that anyone should ever think of treating lightly, and even today in remote parts of the galaxy, remnants of her actions and mind may linger on. For that, there is no rank better to encapsulate her true evil than something original. Threat level, the mind is the limit, a name more than fitting for this cerebral nightmare. You really could not get much more of an unnatural environment when it came to look and feel of Tourian, and the harshness of its metallic hallways and rooms can more than terrify the life out of anyone through its unsettling nature alone. Though the weapons built into the facility on their own might not have been a terrible threat, the number of Metroids that are housed there could make it a death sentence for anyone without the strongest and coldest weapons available to put the monsters in their place. While the destruction of the first version by the Hunter would leave its own scar on the subsurface of Zebes, the second and final version of the facility would do far more harm and ultimately spell the end of the planet itself. Given its isolated nature, it is understandable that few would ever get the chance to even journey here, but for the few that might have, it was a death trap best avoided by most, and feared by any that did not wish to be put into subjugation by the fiendish machines and monsters that lay within it. Well, here we are. It's been a heck of a long journey to investigate the different environments that were once present on Zebes, and while it is a shame that it's no longer present, at the very least, its memories will still live on forever. That being said though, for a time, parts of it could be found elsewhere, so prepare for another lesson in the world of holograms, for the next stop on our tour is a digital exploration of the Galactic Federation battleship. Thank you all for watching this video. We here at Space Pirates Science Team take our work very seriously, and we genuinely wish to be as informative as possible when it comes to the work we conduct here, for both ourselves and in the name of science. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment to help us get greater recognition out there to inform the greater populace of the universe as a whole. Also, feel free to keep track of us through Twitter, as we'll be posting notices there every time something new is submitted for your viewing pleasure. We hope to see you all in the next video, no matter what world it may take us to.